Great, 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 great. Great ideas, and thank you so much for this report as well. Just so everyone knows in the audience, there's a report from Common Cause called Getting to 100%, which Kathy was referring to. It mentions several things in this report, including Santa Monica, which is my hometown, and I just wanted to ask you, Mona, I mean, I hear what you're saying, though I will say from my own experience in Santa Monica, having the city elections and the school and the college district elections on the same date as the presidential or gubernatorial elections really hasn't dampened the robust public participation in the local civic elections. There's a lot. In fact, if anything, people complain that there's so much attention on the city elections that people aren't paying enough attention to the statewide elections in the city of Santa Monica because people are so excited. Now, maybe it does speak to this issue that Kathy's talking about, that when you have a smaller city, people get more engaged. I was thinking about this. You know, Sierra County on election day had a 73% voter turnout, while we had a 31% voter turnout on the same day with the same ballot propositions and the same candidates and everything else. And I was talking to a senator from a more rural part of the state, and he said, well, look, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, there's not a lot of people, right? So people feel, and they know all the candidates. You know, there's this closeness. So I'd love to kind of get a better sense of this phenomenon that maybe both of you can speak to this. By the way, I just want to comment, even if you may not be on the same page on 1 and 2, you're so nicely color coordinated today. Yes. You must have called each other in advance. But I did want to just kind of drill down a little deeper into this sense of, you know, have we gotten, you know, is there a sense that we've gotten too big and that detracts from our sense of participation? Now, of course, you know, the last presidential election had very high turnout. You know, but maybe people get more excited at the national level. They feel like they're connected to the president.
I had a friendly amendment, Mr. Chairman. City of San Fernando, a small city surrounded by the People's Republic of Los Angeles, had an 87% turnout. Again, a scale question.
Yeah, so I'd love to have you comment on those observations.
Okay, so I am not advocating for secession or 6 Californias. Don't want to put that in the minds of people. But I will just say, look, in the report, one of the things that we looked at was a number of different cities that had started to align their elections with the general elections that are run by the state. And what was interesting was we really picked 4 cities. But there are many cities that they're just examples, right? 4 cities that sort of reflect the demographic makeup of Los Angeles City. Pomona was one of them. Heavily Latino, low income, right? All the demographic reasons for why people shouldn't participate. And in a mid-year election, 2010, wasn't any presidential on the ballot, right? The general turnout was in the 55% range, but even the drop-off down to city elections was at 42%, right? So these are people who, once they get engaged, because now maybe the city's doing some outreach, you've got campaigns that are all echoing the same thing, and then you've got the national level, you know, talking about the importance of the elections, you can really increase turnout. And I guess what I would just say is, part of this is, it is about smallness and closeness, and I think, you know, places like Los Angeles City have a real tough challenge. We can talk about solutions to that. But I also think that part of it is, I think that we need to support LA County to do a lot more outreach, but I also think that we can empower a lot of citizen action and nonprofits to do great outreach. And I'll just give a shout out to groups like NALEO and California Calls. They do a lot of like in-person touches, right? And part of it is, there's not any one solution, but we know that people are doing some things very successfully. And if we can just figure out ways to kind of be creative about that and support a lot of those efforts, I think that we can go beyond this usual dilemma of relying only on campaigns to talk to the 505 voters. I did have one thought. So somebody had suggested we don't want to go to the Australia model where you mandate people to vote and then you fine them if they don't. That's horrible. But I did think about this. What if initiatives, in order to pass, city, state, county initiatives, in order to pass, you had to have at least, let's pick a number, 35%, 50% of voters actually casting a ballot. Doesn't matter which way they cast, just that you had to have at least, you would change the dynamics because all of a sudden you'd have campaigns that would say, wait a second, I need to get the voter turnout up. Otherwise, my thing doesn't pass. And I'll just say some countries do that. So a quorum requirement.
What about candidates too, Mr. Chairman? I mean, we have a corporate theory. Look at the law. If you don't have a quorum at a board meeting, a shareholders meeting, your action doesn't work.
Yes, Senator Hertzberg, let's blow it up.
The law. Let's, come on.
Blow it up.
Ask the tough questions. That's what we're here for.
Before we hear from Mona, why is the Australian model horrible? I sat down with a bunch of legislators from Australia, and they were very excited about it. And ultimately, it doesn't require that you don't have to make a choice. You could cast a blank ballot. But what is so? Someone asked me, is it un-American? Do you think it's un-American? And why would you say it's horrible? Kathy.
Oh, they're
No, Mona.
asking you.
Oh,
I heard him say Mona.
Oh, my goodness. Well, actually, I'm going to double back to your first question, Senator Allen. Santa Monica is a very special place. And I am aware that they do the elections in November, but also in the odd year, right? They have them both in the even and odd Novembers.
No.
No? Only in evens?
Gubernatorial and presidential, that's it, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's when, okay, forgive me. But I think the issue of size, it really matters. The closer people feel to the government, the more likely they are to engage. And again, I have to echo, in fact, Kathy and I agree on so many of the solutions and the causes here that, in smaller communities, whether it be Santa Monica, Culver City, San Fernando, people feel more connected, and the candidates have much more opportunity to go door to door, find the voters, interact. There's no easy answer for that. We have big districts. We have LA City, LA Community College District, LA Unified. That's not going to change, but I
have more districts.
What's that?
We
Well,
have more
yes,
districts.
yes, I know about that. And that, of course, is a whole other issue for voters worried about how many politicians there are and how much we pay them. I mean, those of us in this room are, if I may say, in a very elite group of highly informed and passionate people about the political process. And I know all of us, too, at some times interact with people in the real world to whom most of this means very little. And we've got to change the perception. And anyway, thank you. And about the Australian thing, I'm not as, viscerally opposed, but I do think it would probably be a very complicated conversation anywhere in this country to have mandatory voting.
Member.
Ms. Field.
Yes.
I wonder if, to one of your earlier points, if elections were able, depending on what would occur with 1 and 2, elections were able to be adjusted on a ballot with respect to ballot order, if that would assuage some of your concerns that you raised.
That's an excellent question. And in fact, I just want to say about the amendments, if we see them voted in, with a very low turnout probably, none of the requirement of turnout.
Ironic, I know.
I know. And the problem then becomes that it's an experiment, and the way it is currently configured, I don't believe allows for that option to restructure the sequence of ballot positions.
State decision.
There ought to be a law.
Right.
Be a law.
Okay. And to allow cities to do that, perhaps. But I think the issue is, though, the bigger issue is if we vote in such a change, it can take decades to revise, to amend, or to undo what may or may not work. And I'm not opposed to experiments in these issues, but it worries me that perhaps it should have been a pilot program. Maybe we should have said, we'll try it for 10 years and then we will reevaluate. Instead, it's now proposed to be permanent. And but to the specific of your question, I think that might assuage some of my concerns. What if we were allowed by the state to have all the local stuff at the top of the ballot? Because people will go to the bottom to find the president, but will they look for this? And as far as the drop-off, you had mentioned it's not always so bad. Again, it's the question also of media coverage and information, because wherever it is on the ballot, if people feel like, gee, I got a lot of stuff in the mail about the president or about my, the governor, what's this city stuff? Who are these people? That worries me.